woke up in darkness, surrounded by silence, so where have I gone?
Welcome to Emmaus. We are so glad to have you here with us. As you can hear the bell sounding, it's calling all the Christians of this area and the religious who have come to Vespers this afternoon on Easter Monday. And come with us inside as we get to know the house of Cleophas and why this place in Kubebe in Palestine is very likely to be the actual Emmaus that the Gospels speak about. Come on in. So we have taken advantage of the annual pilgrimage that the Franciscans offer to those of us who live outside of the area to El Kubebe. And of course, right in front of us is the facade of the church, and you can see the ceramic depiction of Christ and the two disciples. Who are these disciples? Well, there is a tradition that goes back and says, well, one of them is named in the gospel, and that's Cleophas. And then the other one, the tradition said, is Simon, or Simeon. But really, we don't know his name. Some traditions say that was actually the husband of Mary of Cleopas, who was at the foot of the cross. And this Simeon was their son, or that they were brothers. So there's so much unknown about this. But what's neat is when the Franciscans came here, and there's quite a story of how they got here. It was in the 14th century, and they began this annual pilgrimage and finally did excavations in the 20th century. But what they found were Roman ruins, and that would be the first century when Jesus was there, when Jesus lived, certainly. And what they say is that perhaps one of these houses in the Roman ruins that they uncovered during the excavations would be the house of Cleopas. And so on that very spot, this beautiful church was built. And so what we see inside, of course, above the main altar is another depiction of the two travelers to Emmaus, with Jesus in the middle, revealing himself in the breaking of the bread. On the left, we have a statue of Cleophas himself, and on the right, Simeon, the other apostle. And even underneath the altar itself are two beautiful depictions of these two saints. So if we were to walk from the Holy Sepulchre, from the tomb of Jesus, or from rather Mount Zion, which is where these two followers of Christ began their return to the village of Emmaus on Easter morning, where would you go? Well, Emmaus, or at least this place, which is a commemoration of Emmaus, is in a valley. So they would have walked down to this small village, and it certainly indicates, because of the excavations, that this was a small village. And you can see the beautiful view in this valley. It took us quite some time to get here because it is in Palestine, and so something which was less than 10 miles from Jerusalem actually takes 45 minutes by car because of checkpoints, and access is quite difficult. So what happened here in Emmaus? We know that it says in Luke chapter 24, verse 13, now that very day, two of them were going to a village 7 miles from Jerusalem called Emmaus. And we know very well that they were talking about what had happened, and Jesus himself drew near and walked with them, it says in verse 15. But their eyes were prevented from recognizing him. We know very well that a conversation ensued. He asked them what was going on. He wants them to express what was happening. They even mentioned what it says earlier in this chapter, that the women found the tomb empty and saw a vision of angels. Perhaps they were in the upper room and called them foolish as well. And then the Lord himself reveals, well, first of all, he calls them foolish. He says, was it not necessary that the Messiah should suffer these things and enter into his glory? And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he interpreted for them what referred to him in the scriptures. So they urged him, "Stay with us, for it is nearly evening and the day is almost over." So he went in to stay with them. And it happened that while he was with them at table, he took bread and said the blessing, broke it, and gave it to them. With that, their eyes were opened, and they recognized him, but he vanished from their sight. And then it says, "Were our hearts not burning within us as he spoke to us on the way and opened the scriptures to us?" And so once they started back, returned to Jerusalem, and found gathered together all of those 11, the 11 and those with them, who were saying, "The Lord has truly been raised and appeared to Simon." Then the two recounted what had taken place on the way and how he was made known to them in the breaking of the bread. So these disciples, this story of running away, is something that certainly all of us can identify with, faced with things that we can't explain, faced with difficulties. Even if we have been poured over and into our hearts, grace has been poured, it's not easy. And so Jesus himself comes and walks with them just as he comes and walks with us. I think it's very appropriate that on this day, there's two beautiful traditions that they have, that the faithfuls and the pilgrims have when they come here. And that is the custos of the Holy Land, and today the vice custos distributes bread to the people who come to the Mass. Why is that? Well, it's a long-standing tradition. It's always happened. They do this beautiful gesture in other places as well. But of course, in Emmaus, in the breaking of the bread, they recognize the Lord. And so on this day, each one of us receives this bread, which can be eaten, which becomes part of us, which sustains us and gives us life. This is the Lord. He stays with us in something so simple. But even more poignant is the recitation of Vespers in the afternoon, the praying of Vespers at 2:00 after lunch. The Franciscans are so good. They serve the people who come to Emmaus, give el kibebe lunch, and invite them to pray with the Blessed Sacrament exposed. It's very appropriate that we end our pilgrimage with adoration, where we've taken each and every one of you right on the table of Emmaus. This bread that was broken, this bread that remains with us. We all need the Lord to be with us. All of us. Remain with us is what these two men said to the Lord. And in many instances, our own prayer is, stay with us, remain with us. Speak to us, enlighten us, fill us with grace so that our hearts burn within us. And we have the energy to go back and proclaim the good news, to go back and change the trajectory of our lives. You know, it's very interesting that the inability to specifically identify the real site of Emmaus, even if Luke details in his narrative where it could be, it actually teaches us a lesson that what happened on that day is more important than where it happened. The encounter with the risen Christ is not confined to one time and place, just like the Lord in the Eucharist is not in just one time or in one place. So let us always seek him. Let us always find him here in the breaking of the bread. Let us find him with the other apostles as these two ran back to the upper room. They were confirmed in their own experience of the Lord when others also shared that they saw him, that the Lord came into that room and said, "Peace, I am here, do not be afraid." Let us find strength in prayer, strength in the Eucharist, strength in the community, the church, just like the young church. So as we finish our pilgrimage of grace, let us remain united in prayer, united in the Lord, united in his grace. Thank you for joining us here in Emmaus today. What a blessing to finish off this virtual pilgrimage of grace with each and every one of you. As we encounter the Lord in the Eucharist, we recognize him in the breaking of the bread. And just like Cleophas's house here became a place of pilgrimage and prayer for so many centuries and now even millennia, my prayer for each and every one of us is that with our Lord living in our hearts, we also become this place of prayer for many people We become like Mary Magdalene, as it said in the gospel yesterday morning, an apostle to the apostles. And we go and we spread this wonderful good news of the Lord who has remained with us in the Eucharist after he has risen from the dead and filled our lives with life. So as we head back to Jerusalem, just know that we are praying for you from the Holy Land as we always have. God bless you, and we hope you can join us again for another virtual pilgrimage in the future. Thanks to all of our wonderful Franciscans who do such a great job in the Holy Land. We love them. In fact, you didn't see this, but they actually served us lunch today here in Kubebe in Emmaus. And so continue to pray for them and especially support them as you can in their work here in the Holy Land. And remember, you can also keep following Magdala, especially this upcoming Feast of Mary Magdalene we'll be placing on our website and on YouTube and Facebook, the videos that we took from the Women's Encounter at the beginning of March. So we hope you can join us for that, and God bless you.